Hi, my friend. Are you ready to be found online wherever your dream clients are searching? Are you looking to make your marketing make sense? Do you want to be able to confidently make decisions about your marketing so that you can stop wasting your time and money and really know what to focus on to grow your business? If so, you are in the right place, and I am so excited to have you here. Let's jump right in. Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. I am your host, Rachel Lind Teigen, and I am so glad that you are here with me today. Today, we are going to talk about your podcast and how to help it grow, how to write your titles so that people can find it in the podcast apps and so they're more likely to click and listen. So one of the most important things that you can work on from a podcast SEO standpoint, podcast search engine optimization, is to create great episode titles that are very descriptive, that use keywords, that help your potential listener identify themselves and see how it could be worth listening to. So my friend, if you've got a podcast that is not growing, I want you to listen in today and think about how to make some changes to those episode titles to help you boost your visibility within the podcast app and to hopefully get more people to click to actually listen to your episode. So I've been working with a client recently on her podcast. She's trying to relaunch it. She's trying to figure it out. And so we've really been working on the strategy behind the podcast. Who is she trying to connect with? What message does she have? What business priorities can we bring people into her world via the podcast and help support the business because the reality is, as an entrepreneur, you have a business. You need to bring the right people into your world to grow that business. So part of the problem that I saw with her podcast was that it was very vague. The initial title of the podcast did not tell us anything as to who it was for, what it was about, how she could help them. It didn't have any identification information in it. So that was the very first thing we talked about, was just let's adjust the title of the podcast itself because it really was not helping her. Then we got into the episodes, and that's what I want to talk about in today's podcast here, is how do we name episodes that are going to help people find them? Part of it is by making sure that we're choosing keywords and that we're using those. But part of it is also by making sure we're being descriptive, we're including information that would help somebody self-identify and say, oh, that is a podcast that might be helpful to me. So some examples that I've seen of not so great titles that we don't want to use, things that are not going to help us grow our audience or get clicks, would be very generic, very simple episodes. They're vague. They're things like, let's talk about confidence. Okay, great. Confidence is good. We all need to be more confident, but who is that for? Is that for men? Is it for women? Is it for tweens? Is it for children? What type of confidence? Is it at work? Is it in relationships? Is it, with friendships? Like where? It just doesn't tell us anything. We really don't know what we're looking for. Another one could be, what's really holding you back? Okay, something's holding me back. Great. That's good to know. But in what instance? And where? Why? Why do I care? Or behind the scenes of my launch. Now, I know there's this trend to do the behind the scenes and all of this, but what you have to remember is the person who's going to potentially listen to this, their number one question is, what am I going to get out of this? What's in it for me? That's what I was trained on when I first started working in marketing years ago. You have to answer the question that the customer has, and that's, what's in it for me? If I'm going to give you my time to listen to this, what am I going to get in return? So something like behind the scenes of my launch, that really does not answer the question of what's in it for me. That's really just feeling like it's self-serving for the podcaster, and that's not what you're probably trying to do. So we want to make sure that we help provide more detail, more information. We adjust those so that they're better for our ideal customer, our ideal listener, and the podcast app knows what to show and who to show it to. So we need to make sure we're including some keywords in there. So let's talk about some better podcast episode titles. So good titles could be things like how to start an email list when you have no audience, or SEO for coaches, how to get found in Google without social media. 5 opt-in ideas that convert and are easy to create. So those are ones that they have keywords. They help you understand like who the audience is. Each of these are going to be obviously for entrepreneurs. How to start an email list when you have no audience. That's for a brand new baby entrepreneur who's just getting started. How do you start an email list when nobody's listening to you yet? SEO for coaches, how to get found in Google without social media. Well, that tells me this is about SEO and it's for a coach. So that's going to be helpful. It also tells me I can do this without social media. And then 5 opt-in ideas that convert and are easy to create. Those are also going to be for our entrepreneurs, maybe even our solopreneurs who are doing a lot of it on their own. So now let's go back and let's look at those examples earlier that were the ones that were not great. And let's talk about how we could make them better. So let's talk about confidence. This one, we need to identify who it's for. So let's say that it is for a woman over the age of 50, just because I know that's actually what that particular client is targeting, is somebody who's generally a woman over 50. She's struggling, she's fighting perimenopause, she's trying to figure out how to stay healthy. So let's talk about confidence, or let's talk about staying confident. Confidence tips for women over 50 who are dealing with perimenopause. That could be one, or it could be confidence tips for women dealing with perimenopausal weight gain. Now we really know what we're focusing on. We're talking about perimenopause. We're talking about potential weight gain. We're talking about being more confident. Now let's look at what's really holding you back. This could be what's really holding you back in your business if she wants to talk to an entrepreneur. What's really holding you back in your marriage if it's about a marriage situation. What's really holding you back in life and why you feel unfulfilled after age 50. Something like that. That's a long one, but that would help us really see who's there. Behind the scenes of my launch, that one you could make behind the scenes of my launch and the 3 lessons I learned, 3 mistakes I made so you don't have to make them. Behind the scenes of my launch and the 3 mistakes I made on email marketing or on this launch, something like that, so that people are like, oh, okay, I might learn what the mistakes are so I don't have to make them. That becomes more helpful. Hopefully that makes sense as to like how we want to write these, what we want to do. So now what you want to make sure you're doing is creating podcast episodes that are going to be very helpful for your ideal customer. They're going to provide value. They're going to give them guidance. They're going to give them advice. They're going to be actionable. They're answering that question of what's in it for me. You're using your episode title to help you craft the content that goes into that episode so that what they see, what they read in the app, what they click on is what they get when they listen. So like this one is all about podcast episode titles that get clicked, podcasting tips for entrepreneurs. So the keywords in this are podcast episode titles, podcasting tips for entrepreneurs. Those are both the keywords. That way, you know, this is for an entrepreneur. This is not just for somebody who's doing a podcast for fun. And this is going to talk about getting your episodes clicked, growing your downloads. Now, I could have used the word downloads in there as well, but I didn't feel like it worked. It felt kind of wonky and I didn't want it to get too long. So what you want to do is make sure that you're creating episodes that align with your title, especially since you're creating a clickable title with keywords. You want to make sure that the content you're teaching, you're talking about in your podcast aligns with that. Then what you can do to make sure that you're creating the right type of episodes for your audience is to look in and verify the information in your Apple Podcast Connect account once a month and go back and look and see what percentage of each episode did your audience listen to. That's really important because if you're creating episodes that your audience is very interested in, you'll have a higher average consumption rate. If your audience is not interested in that topic, you'll have a lower average consumption rate. I believe what I've read is like 70 to 80% is kind of ideal. We'd like to see that as good consumption or engaged listeners. If it's below like that 50, 60% mark, that tells us this is not something that people are interested in because they're only listening to half the episode. You're not holding them on average. Now, some people are going to listen to the whole thing. Some people are not. But you want to see that on average, that average consumption is high. That tells us that they liked what you talked about. The other thing you can look at, if you have an average consumption above 100%, that tells you that's a really good episode. That's one that people listened to more than once. So it was probably very juicy. There were probably details in there that they found very helpful. So that's another thing you can look at. So when you're creating your content, when you're creating your plan for your podcast, I want you to remember to use keywords that your customer would be searching for, would be talking about, answer their questions. Put those right there in your title. That's going to help you to hopefully show up more often and get more clicks. Then from there, make sure that your content is great, it's helpful, and make sure that you are always answering the question, what's in it for me? And then take a look at your results so that you understand which episodes they like and which episodes they don't. That allows you to make more of what works and less of what doesn't. All right, that is it for today. I want to thank you for being here, and I'll see you back here next week. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you took away something very actionable that you can start to use in your business right away. If you want any of the freebies that were mentioned, or you want any of my resources or free trainings, you can find those at edgedmarketing.com/freebies. If you would like to work together, I would love to work with you. Send me a note, reply to an email, DM me on Instagram. You know how to find me. I would love to help you grow your business as well. And if you have found this podcast helpful, would you do me the biggest favor and follow it or subscribe on your podcast app of choice, and then give it a rating and review? That really does help. It's just a little something you can do that helps me out in return. I appreciate it so much. I'll see you back here next week.